As we prepare to enter the spring market, we've seen both buyers and sellers becoming more active in the marketplace. However, the pace of new listings coming onto the market has exceeded the demand we're seeing from buyers right now. And although sales in March increased relative to February, they were the lowest sales we've had on record for the month of March since 2019. So what exactly is happening in the market and how is this impacting prices? I'm Adina with Adina YVR Vancouver Real Estate Group, here with your April 2025 real estate market update for Metro Vancouver. Let's jump right into the numbers and take a look at what's happening. Greater Vancouver Realtors reported just under 2,100 home sales on the MLS in the month of March. This is an increase of 14% relative to February, and it's a decrease of 13% relative to March of last year. Comparing this to long-term averages, we see that this number is 37% below the 10-year sales average for the month of March, and it's the lowest number of sales we've seen in the market since 2019. Looking at this by property type, we see that for detached homes, we had 527 sales reported in the month of March. This is a decrease of 24% relative to this time last year. For attached townhomes and duplexes, we had 472 sales in the month of March, and this is a decrease of just 4.5% relative to this time last year. And for condo apartments, we had 1,084 sales registered in the month of March. This is a decrease of 10% relative to this time last year. And this is, of course, welcome news for buyers. Home buyers haven't seen favorable conditions like this in Metro Vancouver in years. We finally have prices easing off their record highs, mortgage rates are down amongst the lowest we've seen in years, and we have more selection to choose from on the marketplace than we've had in over a decade. And this is a sharp contrast to what we were seeing during COVID and other times in our market when we were in seller's market conditions, and we had buyers lining up to get into view properties, and they were also competing with other buyers, sometimes with 10 or 20 other offers to try to secure a property. While sellers have become a lot more active, in the month of March, we had just under 65 homes newly listed for sale on the MLS in Metro Vancouver. This is an increase of 27% relative to February. It's an increase of 29% relative to March of last year. And it represents an increase of 16% relative to the 10-year sales average for the month of March. So how is this impacting total supply? Well, in the month of March, we had just over 14,504 homes available for sale on the MLS. This is an increase of 14% relative to February. It's up 38% relative to March of last year, and it's an increase of 45% relative to the 10-year sales average for the month of March. In the last few years, our major constraint on the market and what was driving prices up is that we didn't have enough inventory on the market. So this has definitely shifted and buyers finally have selection to choose from. So the big question is, how is this impacting prices and what do we expect to see in the coming months? Well, to answer that, we want to look at our sales to active listings ratio, which is our leading indicator showing us where prices are headed. And essentially with the sales to active listings ratio, we're looking at the number of sales in a given month divided by the active listings left over at the end of that month. When this ratio is above 21% for a sustained period of time, we typically see upward pressure on prices and we're in a seller's market territory. And when this ratio is below 12% for a sustained period of time, we're in buyer's market territory and prices are on their way down. Anything in between is considered balanced market territory, and that's when prices stabilize. In the month of March, our sales to active listings ratio was 14.9%. This is almost unchanged relative to February, so we're still in steady balanced market territory. And we're up from January when we were at 14.1%, yet we're down from December when we were at 16.8%. But regardless, we've remained in that balanced market territory over the last few months. And if we continue in this territory, this is when we expect to see prices stabilize. But what's critical in this market is to look at what's happening in different submarkets and different neighborhoods, because we're seeing a lot of variance in the market. We're still seeing certain pockets of the market going in multiple offer conditions favoring sellers, and yet we're seeing other pockets of the market that are in extreme buyer's market territory. Looking at this broadly by property type, we see that for detached homes, the ratio is currently 10.3%, so buyer's market territory, and this is down just slightly from February when we were at 10.7%. For attached townhomes and duplexes, we're actually in seller's market territory at 21.5%, and this is an increase relative to February when we were at 18.5%. For condo apartments, we see that we're in balanced market territory at 16.2%, and this is down just slightly from February when we were at 16.8%. If you were to ask me what we've seen on the ground in the month of March, is that we've seen a lot of inconsistency and unpredictability amongst buyers. As a general trend in the month of March, we did see a lot of buyers coming back into the marketplace. We saw an increase in showings and an increase in the number of offers. But at the end of the month, we saw Trump announce his latest wave of tariffs, and then buyers pulled back again. So it seems like the overall demand from buyers is there, but they remain cautiously on the sidelines whenever we see a new announcement in the news about what's happening with tariffs or our economy. And while we had a quiet start to the month of April, now in mid-April, it does seem like activity is picking up again. And I think the spring market will be very much dependent on what happens in our election and also what we see in terms of our relationship with the US. Where does this leave us with prices? Well, the HPI composite benchmark price for all property types is currently $1,190,900. This is up from February by 0.5%, and it's down by 0.6% relative to this time last year. Looking at this by property type, the HPI benchmark price for detached homes is currently $2,034,400. This is an increase of 0.4% relative to February, and it's an increase of 0.8% relative to March of last year. The benchmark price for townhomes and attached properties is currently $1,113,100, and this is an increase of 0.2% relative to February, and it's a decrease of 0.8% relative to March of last year. For condo apartments, the benchmark price is currently $767,300. This represents an increase of 1% relative to February, and it's a decrease of 0.9% relative to March of last year. So what are the main takeaways for buyers and sellers? Well, for buyers, good news, the market is finally on your side. We have more selection on the market than we've had in over a decade, so you can finally take your time to choose the right home and even negotiate a great deal. And as a bonus, we're also seeing big declines in mortgage rates right now. For sellers, you really need to pay attention to this changing market and be strategic about listing your home. Buyers are out there cherry picking the best properties, and they're either looking for properties that have everything they want or they're looking for great value. So you really need to be strategic about how you price your home and how you get it ready and present it to the marketplace. In order to sell in this market, you need to stand out. And you also need to be patient, and you need to be diligent at paying attention to the feedback in the market and adjusting accordingly. While this market can be challenging, especially for investors selling, people who are selling to move up in the market are in a great position right now. If you're thinking about making a move and would like to schedule a consultation to discuss your options, you could do so by clicking the link below here on YouTube, or you could click the link in my bio on Instagram. And to stay up to date with what's happening in Vancouver's real estate market, be sure to hit subscribe here on YouTube, and you can follow me on Instagram at adina.yvr. That's it for now. Have a great rest of the month, and I can't wait to see you in May.